Hi, so welcome to the Creative Cosmic Roundtable Conversation. Today is September 25th, and it's going to be another fun call. I think that we've already created this call in the ethers, in the non-physical, and now we're pulling it into physical. That's really what the stage in time and the moments in time that we're in, time doesn't even really work as a construct anymore. In the moments that we're going through, we are not in a linear way of moving through our experiences. We're much more in a quantum way. So we are noticing things much more that are happening that have always been happening. We just have started to notice them. We've noticed that what we call time seems to either really speed up or really slow down so that we can get an awful lot more done and we don't have to rush. And sometimes we have the feeling of no time, or just some people have stated it as losing time, where they're going through different places and they come back, and what they would describe as their experiences was quite involved with what was going on. But when they come back, the noticing around them, maybe 10 seconds, 30 seconds has gone by. So time is an interesting thing right this minute. Anyways, what I'd like to do is have everybody go around the table and just start off with whatever you feel moved to discuss. And we'll go from there. And the conversations so far have been quite broad reaching and a lot of discoveries for individuals and then also the other people on the roundtable. I'd like to start.
I'll start. I'm Matthew.
Great.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Matthew. Hello. I probably will start with some dots connecting for me over the last few months, especially in the last couple of weeks. I recall probably about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, logging into my YouTube channel. I have a broad spectrum of stuff going on there. I have the spiritual and alternative media, all sorts of things going on there, even the conspiracy theory, UFO type stuff. Anyway, the realization was about a year ago, it all kind of folded in on each other. Over a course of a few days, the same several topics came up from different perspectives, and it all kind of folded in on each other in the, how did I describe that? From different perspectives, they were all talking about the same thing. They had a little bit different spin on it, obviously, with their perspective. But the conspiracy guys were talking about, spirituality, which blew me away, and the alt media guys were talking about, space programs and UFOs, whatever the topic was. But there was 2 or 3 topics. Election was going on at the time, of course. Things just kind of fell in on each other, kind of collapsed on each other, and it occurred to me that these half dozen or a dozen channels were actually talking about the same number of topics. And I fast forward in my spare time watching some Netflix in these last month. I'm finding the same thing in television. It's quite intriguing. There's a show called Blacklist. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but
oh, sorry.
Good guys versus the bad guys, as it starts out in classic form. Fast forward a bit, and they humanize these agents, these FBI agents. They humanize them, their weaknesses, their strengths, etc. And it continues for past that. You start to see them humanizing the bad guys, the dark side. And just I don't know, about a week ago, I'm sitting here watching this episode where it all collapsed in on itself, and you were actually rooting for the good guys, rooting against rooting for the bad guys, rooting against the good guys, and it all collapsed in on itself again, where this range of emotions and the paradigms all just ceased to exist. I just sat there thinking, what brilliant writers, thinkers, creators, to bring this all together, where you're not sure who or what to root for, to cheer for. So all these dots connected, and it kind of a release for me, personally releasing paradigms of, who's right, who's wrong, because we're quite black and white with that paradigm in this country. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't know who to cheer for. I don't know who to, root against. And it all collapsed in on itself. And I think that's where we are globally, with enough awareness and with enough consciousness, stepping back further and further to just realize it's all collapsing in on itself. There's 7.5 billion people, I believe, and there's 7.5 billion realities. And they're all right. They're all correct from where they stand. So I don't know, a mini epiphany about a week ago, maybe a little bit longer, watching this show, just sitting there thinking, what genius creators to walk me through this, to zoom me through this experience and not know what's light, not know what's dark, not know what's up and down. It was quite fascinating. And my conclusion was, you know what? Everything's hiding in plain sight. And with the amount of awareness, with the amount of consciousness, with the right amount, it all becomes so clear. So that's where I start. That's where I offer my perspective.
Fabulous. And all of those characters and all of those beings that you mentioned, they're all source. They're all original. And you mentioned 7.5 billion, that's on this planet. But this is happening. What you're describing is happening not only in the various dramas in YouTube or on
Netflix.
Right, but it's happening all in our source's universe. So not only on this planet, but all the other planets. So it's very cool that you describe that beautifully.
Thank you. It was, it was pretty. I just sat here thinking, pausing through the show, thinking, wow. I mean, they've covered everything from shadow governments to cabal, and it's like, wow. And here we are, cheering in some, no joke, moments, cheering for the cabal. It's like, oh, wait a minute, and then it just, the perfection of it. Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I start.
So I appreciate that, and I guess a question that comes to my mind, I look at physical reality as a reflection of me. It's reflecting something back to me. I come from the perspective that I create 100% of my reality, so I'll take 100% responsibility for anything that shows up in it. And when I say that, when I watch a movie or a YouTube video or hear a song or read a book, I take the perspective that it's reflecting something very, very valuable to me if I'm willing to look. It's not just circumstantial. And I don't like the word lesson, because that seems a little it's not far-reaching enough. It's me talking to me. It's me reflecting back to me something that I get to experience from whatever that material is. So one of the things that I've adhered to for the last several years is if I don't like what I see in the mirror, and the mirror is physical reality, I don't try to change the mirror. It's an inside job. It's me. The same thing is, if I like what's showing up, then I can get to keep doing what I'm doing and create more of that. But the beauty of it is it's all perfect, even if I don't understand the perfection in what it is I'm hearing or seeing or experiencing. But I know that it's perfect because we're all perfect creators. So we can't create anything but a perfect situation for ourselves. So
Agreed.
I think it's fascinating that, because I've had a similar experience that you're talking about, where this topic showed up over here, and then this person mentioned it to me, and it's like, wow, this is really, really coming in strong. So It's something that I get to look at, And so what's your perspective on that, or anybody else's perspective in terms of our experiences in physical reality reflecting back to us something very valuable for us to grow by, to become the fullest expression of who we are? That's the way I look at it.
Oh,
We're always here.
I would just, yes, this is Sheila, and I would love to speak with that. Was that Clay just then
Yes.
asking about that? Okay, Clay. Well, I had an experience today, as a matter of fact, with yesterday's call, the Creative Cosmic Roundtable call. I listened to that earlier today, and I had a moment of panic. And I stopped the recording that I was listening to, and I turned to my friend and I said, I can't go on that call. I cannot go on that call. I'm not in the right place. I can't go on that call. And she asked me why, of course. I have trouble trusting myself. You know, I'm sure everyone has gone through that. I'm, through lots of life circumstances and things like that, but I have trouble trusting my intuition. I'm getting better at it. It's things that I'm working on, but I'm sitting there feeling not really panicked, but just knowing that I just can't do this, right? And she's working through it with me. We tend to do a thing together. Uh-oh.
Hang on one section. No, hang on one second. Someone who just called in on the call, 928-229, you're making
Yes, I did. This is.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Lydia.
Hi, Lydia. I'm glad you're here, but know that whatever you're doing with rustling papers or hitting your mic is amplified in a cosmic
Take
scale.
off the mic. It's brand new. Take it off.
No, it's just put the quiet down, and then
Okay,
Sheila
I'm not
will.
moving anymore.
Okay,
I'm
cool,
done.
perfect. No, we're glad you're, but I just want to. Okay, go ahead,
I
Sheila.
know.
So
do I introduce myself?
The friend. Oh,
in a second.
Sorry. Go ahead, Lydia.
Sheila's talking. Go ahead, Sheila.
Well, this friend of mine and I, I don't know, there's something about the two of us when we're together, we listen to things and we talk and we do a thing that, we have termed resonance. And it gets a flow of energy going, and I have learned so much about myself and my journey. And I don't know, you spoke to it actually in the last call regarding codes. And I do feel that that's a very real thing. But at any rate, I'm sitting here thinking that, this is not the right place for me. I'm not as talented as everyone else on these calls. And then as we resumed listening to the call, as it was very early on that I had this reaction, you got to the young man who felt that he was in the wrong place and left the call. And my friend pointed, we both actually knew at that point what happened. I was picking up his energy, and I was part of the reason that I was saying to her that I didn't feel that I belonged here was that I don't think I sense energy.
Busted, Sheila. You've been busted.
Well, no, but legitimately, it wasn't. I thought it was mine. I honestly, and I've never, again, I've been told I was an empath once before, but I didn't really understand what that was. And I have had cases where I feel somebody's feelings when they're very sad, and I know that's not mine. But because I had an issue trusting myself already, I didn't trust that this was somebody else's. Anyway, I thought that was very much what you were speaking about, Clay. I hope that wasn't too off topic there, but that's kind
There
of...
is no off topic.
There you go.
Right, there's no off topic. So
there isn't.
Well,
You're here,
BC
Sheila. So you're the topic when you've got talking stick.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just that in several of these calls you have mentioned that these conversations have been had in the ether, and what we're doing is pulling them into the present, into the physical. And several times, that very same instance actually happened, the same kind of thing happened over and over. It took us all day to hear your call, as it does most of the time with us. I personally tend to stop the video and ask questions, and we resonate a little bit, and I get these epiphanies, and so it can, a 1 hour video sometimes can take, 4 hours. I'm not kidding. And but it's a beautiful thing because of for both of us at any rate, the growth that has happened for me, I can say, I'll speak for myself, has been phenomenal. And so I was very excited about these kinds of calls because I am craving this kind of conscious conversation and co-creative in an atmosphere like this. So I just, again, thank you, BC, for the opportunity and for all of you being here and showing up.
That's what we agreed to.
That's it.
yeah,
That's right.
thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I just want to interject one thing here. Two points. Clay, before we started recording, Clay asked, how was this going to work? Was I going to have a specific focus? And I said I didn't have any expectations, and that's on purpose because the call flows. Now, we're not that far into the call, and there's no way that if I had tried to script things out, we would already have such a beautiful start between Matthew and Clay and Sheila, all the dots that they just connected and the expansiveness that we flowed in these few moments. So
Bravo.
it's doing cool.
Sheila, to your point, it just clicked when you said that, because earlier, it was last week, I was talking to somebody, and I think all of us here probably talk about things that we might say aren't normally discussed in the mainstream. That may not be your experience, but in my experience, the conversations that we're having right here and the things that I study, I'm into, not only these sorts of conversations, but into consumer rights advocacy and that type of work. So, and it's just not, these aren't topics that seem to be well known in the mainstream. So what I said to a friend of mine, he had shared some information for me, and I said, gee, thanks a lot. There's no wonder there's only about 3 people on this planet that I can have these conversations with. But what you just pointed out to me is, and I know that that's not true, because we're sitting here, 5 of us, 6 of us, having a conversation, right? So physical reality reflected back to me that what I might have been saying isn't really, really true, and I've known that at some level. So it just kind of clicked on when you said that, Sheila, that these conversations are available in abundance. We just have to open ourselves up to that opportunity, those opportunities, and those possibilities. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're so welcome.
If I may.
Go ahead.
This is Lydia, and I am so honored to be here with you guys, and I'm sorry for the delay. It's just that I tried calling some of the numbers, and they just weren't working, and I tried to download the app, but whatever, I'm here. And all I can say is I've gone through a hell of a ride within the last month. I have lost 20 pounds. I've lost 20 pounds. I've cried a lot, and if I may back up, I want to give you a little bit of a background and show you how I fit in this story. I've been fighting light and darkness. I'm the light most all of my life. Caused me to be a very strong individual. And when I say that, I'm one of 7 children. My mom came legally from Zacatecas, Mexico. My dad was a migrant worker, and he had his green card. And I'm the first generation from California. My mom only had a 3rd-grade education, and my relative, well, I mean, if you really want to know a story, here's a wild ride one. My mom would tell me about how, like, our relatives being Aztecs and the French and them coming on board, you know, from the ships into Mexico, and then they, you know, intermarried and things like that. And so, like, my mother's dad was full French. I mean, and her sister, the grandmother, my mother's grandmother, she actually married the husband of her sister because she had died. And so, anyway, getting back to my story, she'd have these stories about don't sleep with your doll because, you know, devil will get into it. And she'd have these things where, like, stories about the witches, you know, flying in the night and things like that. And the house that I grew up in was haunted. And we'd hear noises at night, and she'd hear the knocks, and I didn't, thank goodness, because that kind of would scare me. But I knew not to look at the mirrors and things. And it got to be to the point where the very first book I would read was a true ghost story book, just so knowledge is, you can take rid of your fear once you learn about something, and you know. So I grew up having to learn about poltergeists and things, and yes, I have seen out of the window the glowing red eyes that Amityville horror, the movie where they say the woman looked out and all she saw was red eyes and everything was just black. And I've even heard the voices call my name and stuff. And I pray to God a lot, and I would ask Saint Michael always and all my life to protect me. And my mom didn't have a lot of education, and I remember one day it just really hit me when I had a glass of milk and I was 7 years old, and she said, "You can't have that. It's my milk." And I was hungry and I wanted that milk, and I said, "Great." And my dad worked all the time for us. He was a very hard worker. And I threw it at her, and I ran. I ran out of the house, and I hid under the hedge. I hid for hours and hours, and here I lived, like close to Mesa, close to Newport Beach, 45 minutes walking distance almost to the beach. And but my mom had to save money. She had to save everything to have a house. And so I worked when I was 9. I worked really hard. I supported myself, and I was able to do neat things. I became a hang glider pilot. I speed skate, and, you know, became a scuba diver. But I worked hard because, like, when my other siblings, when they were like 15, 16, she kicked my sisters out and had them go and live with the neighbors they were babysitting, and so it was really rough. And I'm kind of like a modern day Cinderella story because I was pretty, I had long hair when I was a child, and my fair skin, and they didn't like that. My sisters, they were darker skinned and heavier, but I was told I was stupid. I was growing up in there weren't very many Latinas, and I was told I was stupid. And there was 3 of us that were born in the U.S. and the rest were born in Mexico. And like I said, it was all legal. And so I worked harder and harder. And my sister was very mean. We're all 2 years separated, and when she'd babysit us, and when my parents were gone, and she'd have us taking a bath together, me and my sister, and she goes, if you guys don't clean yourself good, and if my towel just gets a little bit of skin comes off, then I'm going to scrub you really, really hard. But over the years, I kind of went on my own, had to live with another friend because I'd be out there roller skating around and at night, and I was a free spirit. And like I said, I always had God with me as a Roman Catholic. My mom even had catechism for us across the street. But the reason why I'm telling you this is because I was attacked. I was attacked by my family. The day that Nicole Simpson was murdered, I met this man. I was over at Westwood, and I was at a UFO conference, and this geeky guy was following me because I'm pretty and thin, and my husband had already left me because, and I know I shouldn't have ever married him. We only lasted 18 months, but he almost let me die, choking on some food. And I never did anything to the man, but he was a lie. So anyway, he was a fraud before I even married him. I didn't even open up my wedding gifts. I should have never thought of money, all the money I spent, and wanting to have children. That's the only reason why. But anyway, getting back, I got attacked. And let me say one thing. I met this guy, and we walked together, and that other man that was following me, he let me go. And thank God, because I asked this guy, please, this man's following me, and I just don't feel safe. And that's what happened. And so I met this guy, and then we kind of corresponded. But I invited them over to my parents' house where I was taking care of my father and my mother, and they're already very old and in age, like in their 70s and 80s. And my husband, he left me. The reason why he left me was because I lost my job, and a girlfriend that I worked with told him, and I was a legal secretary in the word processing department. I was not a secretary, but a legal word processor. And so
Lydia?
I had him over, and I just want to tell you how my sister attacked me, and they pummeled my head and broke my orbit of my eye, my nose, and my tooth. And there I became homeless. But I knew there was my sister, told me when she went to Japan with another guy, a friend that I
Lydia, I'm going to stop. Lydia?
Yes.
I'm going to stop you just for a sec. I'm very glad you're on the call, and I'm feeling that there's a lot of expansiveness in you wanting to be here. And the only thing I want to suggest is if we don't have hours and hours on the call. So if
right.
you started by mentioning the last month, and I was just curious if things that happened in the last month.
I'm trying to put these pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot happened with that. See, the girl, my sister who beat me up, and my other sister that attacked me, it was kind of like a family thing. And for no reason, other than just to show dysfunctional. But I knew from my sister who went to Japan, she met up with a psychic, and a very good psychic, and the psychic said that one of the daughters of my mother would have unlimited money. Now, My sister that also pummeled me and hurt me, and when I was attacked, I'm connecting the dots here. She told me before I was attacked, maybe when I was in junior high or 12, whatever, she told me that she had this vision of this lady dancing with long hair to her waist, and she had no idea. Now, when she was pummeling me and Eric saw that, she finally stopped, and I had two women, big women on top of me. And I said, I hope to God punishes you for what you're doing to me now. Now come back to here. I realize that when I dance, and I'm told never to stop dancing, but when I dance and I'm at a friend's place and I don't dance out in public, I just, because I've taken lots of dance and it just relieves me, I now realize that God has gifted me with this insight that my sister is paying for what she did to me. And I believe that what's happening is true because of the psychic telling my sister. And what really knocked me off my feet is the person that I've been caregiving for as a personal assistant. He passed just on the 2nd. And his son, I found out,
Can you?
wants to
I'm going to
take
ask
the
if you
law on
can.
me. Okay.
Can you see if you can pull in the focus a little bit, because we're in the now.
Well, this is why the up thing that I want to bring in. The up thing that I want to bring in is because of that, and because of my research and knowing about Heather maybe 13 years ago or something like that, or the year 2013, I don't know. Because I was devastated and my life is not good. I need a new car. I need a new house. And okay, so I called the bank. And I told them that I was a paralegal, and there's something out on the internet, and it's going viral, and they need to research this because I believe it's true. I believe it's true to the point I read the documents. I can see the court stamps. I see that this is true. And so therefore I said, if this is true, and I explained to their agent, they made a case on it, and just long story short, I had the young lady, and I told them how bad the bankers were and stuff, and it was about a 40-minute conversation, just informing her what's going to happen, and I want the bank to investigate this because it could be fraud. They need to go and check this out. And they said they couldn't check it out. And I'm like, what? Then you check it out. And she goes, I am interested, and I will check it out. And I go, can you report back to me? And she said, no. And I said, no. Well, this is ridiculous. And then 2 days ago, or the other night, I went to the public board, the I-UV board, and I explained to the bank, this is where you need to go. And I said, the bankers have been very bad. And I even told them, if they were to actually go, and if this is true, and if they were to go and reverse my wires, that, and I read from my notes, and I don't have my notes in front of me, that they would be liable for $5 billion on a common law account and whatever. But I threatened them really good, and I made them jump. And I could hear her typing. And this is what I want to give to Heather and to Randy, is that telephone call to put out to the world. Because I read that once they are told to go to that link, and if they read that link, that they have to go up the chain of command. That's
Lydia?
How lovely Heather is. And that's all. Thank you. I'm done.
Great. Thanks. Leah?
Yes.
That's it. I don't know what more to say. That's it.
Go ahead, Leah.
Okay. From my experience, when all this stuff got launched in July, I went through a shit ton of fear. It triggered a lot of past life stuff, and I spent like a month clearing it. I'm actually an energy practitioner. I started off with Reiki, and then I developed my own techniques, and I've had training in access consciousness And there's actually a missing piece to why we haven't received the money yet. And what they found, what Access Consciousness has found, is that when they launched their non-trannies program, which is one's transliteration, which means you can speak and know the consciousness of all languages simultaneously. And there's all these different ones. It's not about like transsexual. It's just kind of like a nickname, the 9 trannies. But there's all these different paranormal gifts that we can have. And they launched a class of that, and we weren't ready for it. So when they started using it, it kind of crashed the stock market years ago. And then they channeled in some more information called the Becamex. And the Becamex is like an entity that you created to do things for you in different lifetimes. But the only problem is it keeps you limited within a framework where you can't manifest outside of it. And the Becamex is actually it's actually an acronym that stands for different things. And I can tell you what they are if you'd like me to kind of elaborate on that.
Well, what I'd like you to do is tell me, share with us on the call your experience instead of pointing to things outside you, the Becamex and the they you're referring to who wrote that. Pull that in to your own experience and relate it in this moment to, something drew you to the call, something drew you to be in a collaborative, co-creative process with these other beings who are on the call. So is there a way you can shift and frame what drew you to the Becamex and the other things, and you can connect those dots for us?
Well, when I went to, they had a seminar in Charleston in August called Choice of Possibilities, and that's where they launched clearing the Becamex for everyone who was there, and I got a manual on it, and so I've started incorporating it in my own practice. But what it did for me was, I started off that seminar lying on a table, having them clear it off of me, and it felt literally like framework. I saw visuals in my head of this this framework that was being removed from me and freed up, so I can create outside of that. And energetically, that came with a lot of feelings, a lot of stuck energy and trapped emotion from my throat chakra and other places in my body that moved out with it. And since then, God, that was like the weekend of the 12th. I think it was 12th, 13th, 14th in August. Since then, things have been flying off of me in huge chunks. Like things I've been working on for a really long time have just like flown off, and now it's super easy to create. Like more of my gifts have come through. Like I literally moved my cat across the room by blinking my eyes one time. And
what'd your cat think of that?
She was asleep. Like she had no idea what was going on. No idea. And one time I was in a grocery store and I walked by a cake and it changed flavors on me. And this sounds ludicrous to even talk about, but I saw what flavor it was when I walked by, and I walked back by again. Like I took 2 steps away from it and came back again. And the peripheral vision that I had for that area, I could see that no worker came over there and switched them out. I had clear view the entire time, and they literally changed flavors.
Had you been thinking that you wanted a different flavor?
Yeah, my body wanted a different flavor. It did not want vanilla. It wanted Oreo.
Quantum jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
that's like our bodies are more conscious than we are, and our bodies are creating with us. They're co-creating with us, but we have to learn to start listening to them and communicating with them as if they are another entity, because they are.
Well, Bruce Lipton puts it in a wonderful way. It's a community. You have, I think it's 51 million cells or billion cells. It's a lot, and each one of those is an individual creator, and you're creating a community. And
Yes.
so as our bodies are changing, as our bodies are working through all of the new energies coming in, and the actual physicality of the body is changing, it's a great example to show each of us how to then co-create with all of the other communities. So on this call, let's, if we do the math, we have 6 people times 51 billion cells and those communities. So that's another way to look at it, that there's all of this creative energy going on. And what you mentioned and Clay's mentioned as well, I think, is it's tuning in and noticing what's the reflection back to us, what's going on, what's tuning in.
Right. There's a lot going on. I mean, if you really dive deep in the spiritual world, like I grew up having paranormal experiences my whole life, even though I was heavily steeped in independent Baptist, which is not very independent at all. I mean, you're wearing skirts down to your ankles, and you believe that women are going to hell if we wear pants, and we have to submit, and yada yada bullshit. But I've evolved a long way from there, and I knew I couldn't ignore what else is going on the planet. You know, there's demons, there's entities, and they're just they're wreaking havoc on people if they don't clear them, and they can barricade you from receiving your wealth as well. So I've done a lot of work in the last few months since, all of this really, the money thing started launching, clearing, all the demons that I hired in other lifetimes to keep me small. We have a lot of fears that are unchecked and irrational, completely irrational. It's like you go through a lifetime where you're like, oh, money's bad because X, Y, and Z happened. And it's like all these isolated, glomped together experiences and assumptions that have nothing to do with money and nothing to do with what we can truly do with money once we all are free from it, and or have a ton of it to, change people's lives and, get people eating natural and have sustainable living. And I mean, like, why can't we get our heads out of our asses and start creating wonderful things that we can do with money, wonderful differences we can make on the planet, or just get rid of money altogether and just help each other?
Well, that's what you'll find
Yeah.
is the. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say I felt like that was just as soon as that access is developed, people will very quickly understand that is useless, and that the money isn't. It's never. It's only been a harvesting tool for our energy.
Right.
I mean, I feel like it's I have viewed these account accesses a bit as a stepping stone, if you will, even of what I've thought, because of just what you said. Why can't we get our heads out of our asses and realize that the only reason the paper money is there is to harvest our energy?
Right.
So let me ask you a question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. So let's ask a question there. If we create 100% of our reality, if we're each going to take responsibility for that, so I'm going to work on that.
Clay, you've answered your own question.
Right.
Ask like the lawyers say, ask and answer.
The question I'll pose to the group, or the idea that I might propose, is everything is based on beliefs. If we have a belief we can't access money, It's not about something outside of us. It's something internal. We have a belief that is preventing us from accessing something. And when we do a belief inventory, when we're willing to look and say, well, what beliefs do I have that's preventing me from accomplishing X? If we really, really look, we'll see somewhere along the line we developed a belief. Beliefs rule everything. And there are individual beliefs. And so one of the things that I've kind of noticed at the board is people looking outside of them and maybe sometimes pointing fingers and saying, well, this isn't happening or it's not going the way I want it. Well, start looking inside. One of my favorite quotes is this: be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change, Gandhi says. Be that thing. If you want wealth, be wealth. If you want love, be love. If you want to feel healthy, be that. But it's all based on us individually shifting. So as we want our world to shift, it's up to us individually to shift. And the way we do that is, from where I sit, is looking at what beliefs we have that might be holding us back, and then addressing those beliefs one by one. And that, if there's any work involved, that's the work, is doing the belief inventory, finding out what beliefs we're operating on that might be stunting our expansion. If anybody else has a perspective to add to that, I'd enjoy hearing it.
No, I agree with you. But so few. Where I don't speak for you, but for me, I'm at the front of the pack. I'm at the front of the bell curve, and as I'm sure all of you can relate, you feel like you're out there lost in space because there's so few people you can talk to, so very few people you can connect to. So, I keep looking back over my shoulder going, when are you going to catch up? When are you folks going to wake up? And my realization is I have to stay there. I have to stay where I'm at. I can't be the fixer anymore. I can't be the one that rushes in to fix Carrie like I used to. But it all comes down to self-work. It all comes down to the individual. And even within our community, even whatever you call that, metaphysical, spiritual, new age, whatever you call that, I had this grand idea a year ago, 2 years ago. I had my little inner circle. And I'm like, oh, let's all kumbaya, let's all hold hands, and let's go through this together. And see, you know exactly what I'm going to say. That lasted about a month, and then we all got put in our separate bubbles, geographically separated, vibrationally separated. We pop our heads up every couple of months and go, I think I'm alive. But to Clay, it's so individual. And I agree with you, and that's the core of it. That's the absolute core of it. It's all individual. You do your thing. Try to stay focused. Try to keep moving forward, and let everyone do theirs. But the illusion that we should do this together, the illusion that you need to wake up or the government needs to do this, for me, that's past. That's absolutely gone. I can't point a finger outside of me at all. Zero.
And when we do, that's the beautiful thing, man. When we can take responsibility, no longer are we at the effect of something outside of us, right? It's like we can't, when we stop pointing fingers, I mean, that's the great thing. It's like you have this website, your YouTube channel, the things that you're doing. You're doing what I hope is your highest excitement. And where that's leading you is probably, I hope, to a place of a lot of fulfillment. I look at what BZ's doing. I mean, she steps out there, man. BZ, I got to hand it to you. The amount of what I would, from a linear perspective, time that you put into that awesome website and your commitment. It's like, but you're being the change. I can only presume that you have this picture of what you think is your perfect life, what's perfect for you, and you're creating that and not letting outside forces dictate what it is you can be, do, or have, And I think that's what each of us gets to do. And when we take 100% responsibility, we got nobody to blame. And that can be a tough thing to do because sometimes it feels good to go, God, I want to blame you, I have conversations with my girlfriend, I'll say, I want to blame you for this, but you and I both know that I can't. And that
Right.
kind of sucks. But
well, that's just it. When you hit that tipping point, when you hit that tipping point, and you can't go back, and it's like, oh crap, I can't blame anyone.
Right.
And it's like,
right.
Not your boss, not your parents, not your lover, not your nothing, not even the mailman.
Right.
Right. Right.
And that is a challenge to stay there, because some days you're like, you know what, I just want to eat McDonald's and coast. I just want to watch crappy movies and coast. And it's like the universe is like, no. You signed up, you got to follow through. So yeah, you reach that tipping point. It's like, damn.
Oh, and keep in mind too that your people, they might point to God, or they might point to the.
Yeah, you went in and out. Can you repeat?
Yeah, hang on one second.
Dead air. La 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 la.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, Drew. Good.
I heard the la la. I was going to say that keep in mind that we're the universe. So when we it's very interesting. People have different ways they might say, well, the universe doesn't want me to do that, or God, or whatever it is. And again, that's looking outside of ourselves. Look inside, because you are the universe. I mean, you can find physicists who are straight line physicists in all the beauty that encompasses a way that a physicist walks through the world and languaging things. And they prove to you very easily that everything that you're looking in the stars, in the sky, in the universe, and all those things are within you. They actually are mirrored. Clay, you talked about mirroring things when you're experiencing stuff. People out experiences back. Your body and the cosmos is mirrored within itself. So your brain, all the synapses, all of those actual systems and matrices and the structures within you are the mirror image of the structures within.
Yeah, you're breaking up again, sweetie.
Yep.
And the
went away.
Yeah.
I'm coming back.
Easy, come back. Come back.
Don't go to the light. She's probably playing Candy Crush. She went over. We hijacked her call. Oh, hello.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm on a different device. So, anyways, I was just saying that we're mirrored in the outside world.
Uh-oh, now you're echoing.
Okay, how does that work now? Better?
Much better.
Yeah.
Any echo?
Not yet.
No.
Okay, just for me.
What did you say on the previous calls? Can you draw your energy in, please?
That's right. That's right. So when you're all looking at the different thought things, what's mirrored outside of us, the universe, and what we want to focus on, play with that for a minute. Play with how we would create something moving forward if we set aside a lot of the old constructs of money and other things aside. So it's a new day, we're creating the new path, and what are the ideas that just flow without thinking about them, or only coming from your heart space and the brain in your heart? what's coming in just pops into your head?
As far as the creation, creating something, manifesting?
Yeah, or even no limits. Go ahead, whatever comes in.
The mechanics of
Well,
doing
you
that,
know,
or the wish list.
I
Well,
was
let's
going to have
start
to
with
say,
mechanics.
you know, I'll tell you why I have so much trouble with that. I mean, as I said with my friend, we had actually talked about this very subject because of the old paradigm that we are, I think all agreed that we would like to get out of. But because of all of that previous programming that we allowed for ourselves or that we entertained and kind of came up in, when I try to think about what you're speaking on there, BZ, about creating in the new without limits, I find that a bit difficult without parameters. I go to the completely fantastical because if I have no limits, well, Samantha Stevens and wiggling my nose kind of comes to mind. And
can I ask? Haven't you seen around you in the last 3 months, 4 months, whether you experience it or those around you, where people call and say, "I got the job that should have taken 3 or 4 months to get, and they got it in a week," or
Yes.
the relationship, "Oh, we just met. Oh my God, we're on our honeymoon." I'm like, "Oh my God," and I, applause.
Right.
Friends that get pregnant the first time with medical help, and it's like, whoa! Countless examples. Do you all see that?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, we create processes here in physical reality. Because we come here and we experience linear time. And, from my perspective, that's one of the reasons we come into physical reality is to experience the idea of cause and effect in a linear time set. But it's just a construct. So really what happens is we create in our consciousness, in the non-physical, someone might call it our mind, by making a decision. We simply need to make a decision. Now, we can decide that we're going to create a process to make this thing happen because we want to experience what it's like to have a process. But we create reality the moment we actually truly buy into our decision and trust that decision. And how can we do that? How can we create what appears to speed up in a linear time frame? So we decide, we trust the decision that we made, and then we act on the decision. How many times have we heard I don't know how many people on this call have heard the idea of acting as if you already have it. It's not a matter of, I'll do this when. It's like, I'm just going to go ahead and visualize and experience what it is I want right now. And one of the things you said, Sheila, is like, you get fantastical. Awesome. There's no limitation.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Go for it. Embrace it. And there's a little voice saying back there, saying, well, you're being ridiculous. That's just based on a belief. So we get to, where did I get that belief? Where did I get that belief that this is just fantastical and just not realistic? And when we land on that belief, it's like, oh, maybe somebody told us that. That's okay. And every belief is valid because it served us at some point. But we can look at that belief and say, this belief no longer serves me. The reason it doesn't serve me is because it doesn't feel good. So I'm going to adopt a new belief. I'll give you an example. When I was 5 years old, I had a belief that it was best to cross the road holding my brother's hand. But today, we're both adults, and I think crossing the road with holding my brother's hand, while it was a valid belief at one time, and may still be a valid belief, it doesn't really serve me anymore. So I get to change that belief. And we get to do that with anything. That's my perspective.
And
But go ahead.
Well, I just want to put in here for a moment when we're on the fantastical, because who would want to be there? But think about all the movies and all the books and all the TV shows, and all of the ideas that they bring out, all of the things that they're talking about, whether it's technology or especially the movies and television. Let's take those, and Netflix and videos will put in those that are brought from the entertainment industry. Those are things already exist. Every time you see a script or a movie or something within that, and they're talking about technology or they're talking about some really cool thing that someone's flying on, or a pair of sneakers. I can't think of the movie right this minute where the guy has the sneakers, Jupiter Ascending, and he's flying on the sneakers. Those technologies, those things already exist. Now, most of the we's, when I say we don't have access to them yet, is true. We don't. But there are a large portion of people who actually do have access to those things right this moment. And those are actually what you're seeing pictured in those scripts and videos and movies are older technologies. That's not even the newest cutting edge. A lot of that's back engineered and so on and so forth. So when you say, Sheila, fanciful, really out there or far out, that's your creator being talking. That's not your linear human saying, oh, well, that's too crazy. I can't think of that. I have to be practical. I mean, you can if you want to, but if you don't want to, in other words, those things are already there. They're nothing that you can point to in any movie is a fantastic solution because it already exists. That's one of the things. Make no mistake about it. The movie industry is talk about hidden in plain sight. All of that is showing you different things.
Yeah.
It's pointing out things that already exist. It's getting you to play with those ideas. Some of that is because if you were to talk in they terms, they're wanting to float some ideas, especially if it has to do with being invaded and all that kind of stuff, to see how the masses will react and how they can put that on their scenarios board and logistics boards of how to run other scenarios, false flags and stuff they want to run. But also what you're seeing is there are a number of, just as there are in any industry that's heavily serviced to self-industry, there are a number of awake, polarized individuals that are actually service to service to others who are kind of hiding within those or being cloaked within those. And when you see a lot of that information come out in movies, it's because they're wanting to get the word out. They're wanting to have you watch something and wake up. And in the last 3 or 4 years, certainly before that, but in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been a very heavy run of those kinds of movies coming out where, talk about connecting the dots. I mean, they're just popping all over the place like popcorn. Lucy was one, Jupiter Ascending. There's I can't think of them, but I have a list. I think there's a list on the IUV to put out. But so don't limit yourself. So having said that, what are you thinking of? What's too out there that is no longer out there?
Say that again, BJ.
Well, I was asking Sheila, I mean all of you, but to Sheila in particular, start, what kind of things were you thinking of? Because it's not a wait thing. We don't need to wait.
Well, I don't think she was being specific. It was just the idea of magic and glitter and unicorn type thing, I assume.
Yes, sort of, exactly. Yes, I grew up reading all of those.
To the point.
Say that again, Sheila.
She grew up reading about these things.
Yeah, I grew up reading, all of the sci-fi and the fantastical, like you said, the unicorns and psychics on other planets and, those sorts of things. So when I start thinking about creating, and because in my reading of those things, see, I'm not one of those folks that has been, awake, so to speak, or connected in any kind of special way in any time generally until recently. I'm now becoming more aware of my intuition and these sorts of things, and really, to use that term every one of us have come to loathe, I kind of woke up in 2009 to the, geo-global, political conspiracy arena first before I ever even got the puzzle piece, if you will. That's one of my favorite terms because I feel like everybody has puzzle pieces. It was something I kind of came up with before I understood what I was really feeling were these codes that I was receiving from the different works that I was viewing on YouTube or reading in different areas. And so as some of those puzzle pieces, I very much agreed with what Matthew said about things kind of collapsing in on themselves as such that I was beginning to see across all those genres myself that each one of these folks were speaking their own truth and in a lot of cases their own memories, and they had what I was terming puzzle pieces for me, because I could see where in a lot of cases they were all talking about the same thing, only just through their own personal perception filters, which I feel like we all have and we can't kind of get away from because of the way we were raised and all of these kinds of things. But being able to step outside of maybe my own perception filter sometimes, not all the time because I'm not really good at that yet, and be able to recognize and see that even though a lot of times I don't feel like those folks can see that they're actually saying the same thing just through their own perception filters. So I don't know, I kind of, when I think about how to create in the new, if given no limits, then it gets very broad for me, and I almost find myself getting a little lost in that because I'm not quite used to that yet. But it's just that I get a little lost in that, and it's almost like that I can kind of see the Fool card in the tarot, like getting ready to step off into the cliff of the. Okay.
Okay, you'll be Thelma. You'll be Thelma in the car driving over the cliff. How's that?
Yes.
Well, you can pick one focus, one topic, and then have no limits on that, and that will help keep you out of the lost feeling, but still not having limits in that one area. And then you'll find those dots will connect all the other ones as well.
I go back to that list I talked about earlier. This friends of friends, who are creating at Mach speed, and these aren't necessarily awake, aware people. They're just, their focus is ahead. They've limited, they've done some of the work, but that's the time we live in. What took a year now takes a month. What took a month now takes a day or two. That's the illustration for me, is give it focus. Don't look in the rearview mirror. Don't get distracted. Give it some attention, and wow. That's the momentum I feel. That's the momentum I see all the time now.
Okay,
Absolutely.
I get what you mean now. I did not catch on to exactly what you meant until just that moment. Yes, you're right. And I think the reason I haven't been able to see that quite as much as I have spent the last about 12 years very ill until the last 3. And so I don't have a lot of folks around me because I was so ill. I was pretty much housebound and bedridden for a lot of that. And so I don't have a lot of friends, and as I'm sure you all can relate, as we've all said, there's not a lot of folks you can actually talk to And yeah, so no, I didn't notice that except within my own self, because there's been some things that I have manifested even accidentally. Recently, I just manifested the end of my 27-year marriage quite accidentally. But I laugh.
And you know what
but
we're all going to say about that word, don't you?
well, yes.
Accidentally,
Yes,
we're going
because
to just jump on that.
well, I say it because I really did not. It wasn't my conscious at that moment intention when I spoke the words. Let's put it that
Right,
way.
but that
But
doesn't that go back to my illustration of momentum,
yes,
where
it does, and that's
you are
exactly my point.
you are
I didn't.
subconsciously vibrating, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, and you take a breath and poof, there it is. It's this instantaneous
Exactly.
again. And 5 years ago, it would have taken you 2, 3, 4 months to chip away and make that attempt to say, time to move on. But the universe is like, we've run out of time. You got to go now.
No, you're right. Exactly. And and until you said that just now, I did not touch that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Sheila, big Sheila, the higher self Sheila said, "Okay, come on, you
We're done.
want this? We want this. Let's do this."
Yes, you're right. And it was a bit of a shock to me at first, but I have to say, and again, in terms of, and I think Leah, you said how things have been just flying off of you. Again, I've had this very intense focus in the last 3 months on me and what do I want, because for the first time, I'm 56 years old, the first time since I'm 13 months old that I am completely responsible for no one but myself. And this is something brand new for me. So I'm already kind of in a different and new paradigm.
I have a friend in the same.
And it's very exciting.
She didn't think so at the beginning, but she's getting to say. I think they were married 45 years, and he walked in one day and said, "I'm done." And your story is very parallel to hers.
Well, it is exciting. Well, I'm sorry. It is exciting, but also if you came from a family of strong victimhood veins, it's also it has as much anxiety as it has exhilaration.
Oh, I wasn't suggesting that this was easy for her. It was absolutely traumatic, and I mean she had to be medicated, quite frankly. I mean, I wasn't suggesting that this was a walk in the park, but to Sheila's to the element Sheila's discussing, the universe stepping in and talking for her, and she, your lips are moving, but you don't know who's talking, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, in my case, to speak to that, yes, it was very intense for me as well. However, to speak to what Matthew was saying is that I don't know. There's a part of me that expected to be so devastated for a very long time, because this was something that I wasn't really expecting out of this husband. And I am not. There was a lot of purging that was going on, but that wasn't the only thing that was purging. That's why I spoke to what Leah said about things flying off, because it was getting over that relationship. It was bringing up things in regards to abandonment issues that I didn't even realize I still had, and all of these kinds of things. And it's been so very, very good, actually, and rather quick, actually, too, for me anyway.
Yes, for me, the speed of huge chunks flying off has been amazing, because it's so much shifting at one time that I can't be like, no wait, what is that, let me like overanalyze it and then beat the drum of it, of something I don't want, for like 42 more days. And there's just so much shifting off at once. It's like, okay great, go, and it's like this constant ego surrender, and I don't have time to figure it out. I don't care to figure it out anymore, because I'm feeling more free by the moment. Like earlier, my whole thing of like, why won't people wake up? That was just like an old pattern coming back to say goodbye before it left me completely, because I'm really not in that space that much anymore. I'm really like in this really delicious space of, okay, I can change everything. What do I choose?
Very nice.
Yes.
And keep
I
in mind
agree.
too, just because something is unlimited doesn't mean it is all um, warm and fuzzy and dark chocolate. There's hard work that comes in with that, but it's the difference is it's hard work of our choosing, even if in the moment we realize that we're consciously choosing it. The larger part of us wants us to move on, knows that we're expanding, knows that everybody standing next to us expanding, the whole planet, all the multiverses, and we're really coming to an end of the, I think era is probably a good word, except that the era was eons long, of extreme polarity, particularly on this planet. And
No,
that doesn't mean
I agree with that. Yeah.
That doesn't mean that all polarity will be gone, but the need for, the desire for the creation of extreme polarity is going away. And so you will have, well, within a call like this or other places, there'll be things that show you things, point things out to you, bring things forward for you in different ways depending on your perspective and how you're holding something in the moment, and it has gifts for you. So there can be things that may be termed as not quite completely smooth flowing, but those have opportunity in each moment that brings more expansion to what you're moving through. And that's really, that's why it's also the sense of things speeding up and happening faster, because we just aren't holding on to the what do I think about this and how do I need to hold this anymore. When something new comes along, we go, right, got it. And it's almost like, you jump from school, you jump from one level of let's say math class, from one level of learning of math class to pre-calculus or something, and you don't need to go through all the steps. You just step into the next problem on pre-calculus, and it aligns for you, almost like a Rubik's cube. Everything clicks into place, and you just start from right there. You don't say, oh wow, I didn't know that minutes ago, now I know it, because you're remembering it. You've already known it, and you're just pulling it back online for you.
To that point, BZ, if one of the things that I find is helpful, if I come from the place, if my touchstone, if my center point is that everything is actually perfect, meaning that the universe is always conspiring for me, and I just can trust in that, even if I start to wobble on something or something comes into my experience that may not immediately feel so good or feel that perfect, if I can go to that space and go, but I do trust the universe is conspiring for me, I do trust everything's working out perfectly, that brings me back into a harmonic or a vibration that allows me to bring whatever gift or whatever perfection I meant to experience in faster. So instead of ruminating or focusing on why did this happen to me or how am I going to get out of this and focusing on what may be perceived as a negative aspect, just trust it's all perfect. Just by doing that, it alleviates any pressure we put on ourselves to have to make it work out in a particular way. Just
at that point, you've surrendered the 3D, the 3D ego, the 3D mind, the 3D paradigms, and you're so connected and in the flow that, I mean, it's all there. So yes, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't mastered that yet. I'm not even close.
More than
I mean,
more than you know what, more than you think, actually. You're not on this call by accident, Sheila. So you've mastered that more than you think. You may not be conscious of every moment of that, but your connections and your awareness and your consciousness, absolutely.
Well, you
not a
gave an
mistake.
example of some of that today, but there's a lot of, and I realize, like I said, I have a big self-trust issue, but which I am working on. I guess there's just a lot of that.
For me, I've noticed that if I don't think that I have shifted, and I'm expecting the same thing over and over, and so I like to ask myself, what am I not acknowledging that if I would acknowledge it would bring me ease right here in this moment? So that way I'm noticing what is in the moment, and I'm seeing myself in a new light and not necessarily in the old way that I've always been, like, oh, it takes this amount of time for things to manifest, or that person's seeing me like this. And I mean, all of that, mind stuff can really get in the way and bog me down.
Good old 3D.
a lot of times we have. I'm sorry, Matthew. Go ahead.
No. It was just good old 3D. It's what we're all letting go of. So that's why.
Yeah.
That's why it's like the balloon underwater. We've held it there for millennia, and now it keeps flying up, despite most of us trying to push it back down. So to these big bursts and these spurts of energy and these connections and these manifestations, we're about ready to permanently let the balloon float, and we're just going to go with it. So but the 3D, a lovely thing to let go of.
And Leah, when you were just mentioning you didn't have to look backwards, you don't have to rethink what's already gone by. That's the 0 point. That's the neutral point. Where you're just experiencing something without throwing in the judgment.
BZ, there's echo again.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to figure out what that is.
Yeah, you're shifting out of 3D, BZ. You're well on your way to fourth dimension there. So we're gonna pull you back in for a minute.
I think she actually set that up so the echoing would be for my benefit.
Oh. Okay, so let's go around and wrap up and finish how you'd like to finish with a brief motion.
What was the last part?
Just a brief mention of whatever come to mind for you to close down the round table. And we'll end this portion of this particular round table.
I'd like to just address.
I would like
Go ahead.
No, you. Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that I'm seeing in say, the marketplace, the financial markets, the legal and financial system, which are basically one and the same, we're seeing lots and lots of changes, a lot of clearing going on. So for those people that are kind of wondering what's going on with the account, whatever that means, the idea is that the whole financial system is shifting. And there's got to come a way where the financial markets are going to have to come up with a way to back a currency, and I would say a cryptocurrency, a digital currency. When we look at the accounts and we kind of we see what they're doing with that. They're opening, we've peeled back the veil, we've pulled it back, people are understanding what's there. We understand that we are literally, you, me, individually, we are the money. We are the creators, and we are the money. So think about that for a minute, if you will, how that ties into the idea of a digital currency and a cryptocurrency. What's going to back that? What might back that digital currency? How might that look, and how might that all come together? So I think we're really on the cusp of something really, really big. How it's going to play out, how these accounts that people have been trying to access are going to be accessed, say, from a linear perspective a year from now, may not look like you're thinking it looks right now. So my thought is open up the possibilities. There's a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of changes going on in the financial markets. I worked in the financial markets. I was a trader, a market analyst, and I actually was a fund manager and an owner of a managed fund for a number of years. So I look at the currency market regularly. So this is one of the things that I'm seeing, and you may see something similar or maybe totally different, but what you're thinking today, down the road, whether it's a year or 6 months, may not be the way it's going to play out ultimately. But I think it's all going in the same direction, and that's a really excellent direction. That's all I've got.
Great. Who else?
I believe that when people, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. My experience has been that people that I know personally knew a guy that was able to go and get an automobile with his account a long time ago. And he did it, and everything happened, and he disappeared. And so these people are scared. I know that when you go into court, everything's all different. You go in there, they're a bank. They don't want to let go of you. They're going to change laws. It's the Sedition Act that Thomas Jefferson talked about, where the police, the prosecutor, and the judge conspire against you and trump up the charge. Why? Because for every guilty charge, they make money additional to what they're getting paid by. And I'm talking about the judge, okay? They don't even have to claim that. And if you go to the website, and I don't know if I can say this, it's stopthecrime.net, or it could be stopthecrimes.net. Deep down in there, there's a free book by retired Judge Dale. And he tried from federal court because of crime. And it explains everything there. And I feel that when you go in court, and I bless Heather and Randy, because they're in tyranny right now. They need help. And that's why I think this recording that I made might open up that door.
I'll stop you there for a second. Heather knew exactly what she was going through, and this is how it had to unfold. So.
Oh, I know.
We'll just leave it at that.
But I'm just saying, everybody that goes in court today, they're crooks. They're beasts.
Well, it always has been. But things are changing rapidly, and they're trying to get out of it as well as everybody else is trying to get out of it. All right.
Well, you know, BZ,
the reason why. Okay.
I was just going to say, BZ.
The reason why I'm
Clay, what were you saying?
We were just stepping on each other. But BZ, I'd sent a document a couple of weeks ago regarding who we actually are in the entire system, and I think a lot of people don't understand who they are within the legal and the financial system, and we've created this hierarchy where we believe that we're not at the top of the hierarchy. We believe we're somewhere underneath it. Some of us say, okay, yeah, I am God. Yeah, I am the creator. However, this judge has power over me, or this politician has power over me. And that is so far from how the system actually operates. But we've created that. They've created the illusion of that. But they know who we are. They know that we are God in the physical, and that everything emanates, everything derives from us individually. And so when you can put on your
we're the value.
We are absolutely, we're the value. And so these courts that aren't really courts, because we are literally the highest court in the land. We are the highest judge in the land. We're above anything. We're above a Supreme Court. We're above any judge or pretend judge. But most people just don't understand where they are, and they don't understand how to put on the armor, because they don't truly believe that they are, in fact, God. So,
well, the struggle there, the struggle there is the 5D versus the 3D. I mean, the 3D of we're not good enough, they're better than us,
right.
And we're coming out of that. We're putting all that down, getting snippets and crumbs of, oh my God, there's money. Really? I have money?
Yeah.
And we're in that awkward stage of people still attached to 3D things, rushing toward the gold mine, and it's like, stay focused, folks. But it's that chasm between. It's that chasm between the two.
Well, and those
and we're also playing
tools and dots to open us up to everything of what we really are.
Yeah. Well, if there are laws in place to actually protect and enforce our godhood in commerce, in the legal system, and those laws fall under the consumer protection laws. A lot of people think it's only about credit and
nope.
Debt. It's so far beyond that, guys. It's so far beyond it. When we get into the consumer financial protection laws, we're not talking about codes and statutes within the United States. We're talking about international law. That's what these consumer protection laws are. And so when we stop playing the patriot game, as so many people, they go down that path, and they play the citizen game, and I don't even like this term. It actually makes my stomach hurt when we talk about this idea of a sovereign citizen. There's no such thing. You can't be a citizen and be sovereign,
Well, that's a whole other ball play. We won't go there.
Yeah, it is. So the point of it is, guys, we have the powers here, the laws are here, but it comes and they were created for us. But we have to be willing to look and find ourselves in there. And really it comes down to knowing self, knowing who you are. And when you know you're God, you know you're God. And in this moment,
we actually transcend those laws, because things are moving so fast and expanding and unveiling and being revealed so fast that those are becoming inconsequential because people are stepping into the truth of who they are.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Yep.
Agreed.
Okay, lady, you want to have one thought before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say, anytime I'm doing anything, whether it's something negative that comes up, or positive, I just always ask, I'm creating my reality. What do I choose? And, when the word choose comes up, it has a certain energy to it. It's not, what do I settle for? What do I barely get by with? What could I do with? It's, what do I choose? And that's really important to know. You're setting the bar for yourself and you're allowing your experience to be here. And if you feel unworthy, then you have to go in and pluck that unworthiness out and allow more of your own divine light in, because we are truly capable of creating some amazing and magical things on the planet with ease.
Mm-hmm.
Bravo.
Yep.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's a gorgeous note to end on.
Yeah.
Well, wait a
Thank-
minute. I didn't get to say anything. I didn't.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I'd like to voice my thanks, first of all, of course, for all of you showing up and for BC arranging all of this, and also to echo what was done in the other calls, and that is I would like very much for my email to be shared with everyone on the call, and I'm hoping that we can reciprocate in that. And just wanted to say how grateful I am because there were several puzzle pieces that you all have offered me this evening and helped me to level up. And I am very appreciative of that.
Leveling up like a gamer, huh, Sheila?
Yes, exactly like a gamer. And the truth of the matter is, for me, is that because I have been doing a lot of intense inner work on my own, but I know very well, full well, that I cannot do it alone. And that is because of what you talked about, Clay, having those reflections and that kind of thing. But it is also difficult for me anyway, at this time, to do that with very much of the local area. There's very few that I have in this area to do that with. So I would very much appreciate to be able to stay in touch with everyone. If you guys are open to that, would love to do that. I would also like to put out there that I'd like to do this again with any one of you and all of you.
Yes, please include my email address.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can include mine too. This is Lydia.
Yeah.
I don't know whose
Same
dog's
here.
barking.
BZ, thank you so much
sound
for.
asleep on the couch.
Thanks, BZ.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
BZ. Thank you,
so
everybody. It
much
was
to
a
all
pleasure
of you.
meeting you guys.
Thank you,
Well,
BZ, for all of
absolutely.
your good energies.
I love you all. Have a great night, and I'll put the video up as soon as I get it finished.
All right.
Ciao.
We
Be
love
well.
you,
Love
and
you.
we bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.